Hello, hello, Otafest podcast listeners. I'm Angelo, and I'm here with Nancy and Jay, and we have
Hello.
words to stick into your ears.
Straight
Only
from
the
my
best of
mouth and
words.
into your ears, where it will corrupt your brain. Welcome to
Banging
the
on
Otafest
that eardrum the
podcast.
whole time.
Boom,
That's
boom.
how sound works.
I'm in your room, your headroom.
Your headroom. And while we may not be able to provide a physical place for fans to get together and celebrate our common interests this year, we are thrilled to offer an online alternative. Otafest 2021, a live streamed event. More information will be announced over the next few months, so keep an eye out for a sneak peek into this year's features and programming. Please visit otafest.com for full details of this event.
Very nicely Shatnered, sir.
That wasn't Shatner. What are you talking about?
I've never heard of the man.
I was legitimately not trying to Shatner that. What are you guys talking about?
It sounded good, though.
Otafest 2021. It's already only 2 months away.
Two.
Do you
Not enough
do you
time.
remember what it was like to be 2 months away from Otafest before COVID happened?
Yes. Because I'm still planning and I'm still doing all the same work that I've done before. Yes.
Yes.
I mean, my
Nothing
job is
really
significantly
changed.
reduced. Sort of.
Yes. That's because you are mostly day of, other than the podcasts. So, well, you do have a new sort of role, but I don't want to spoil it. But that has nothing to do with
nope.
anything. So, look out for all the new news at otafest.com because we're working hard.
News.
And there's gonna be I'm really impressed with how things are coming together. Again, no spoilers, nothing that won't be coming out or announced after this episode or whatnot, but
I hear that there's guests.
we're putting a lot of work into it. There are people involved.
I hear that there's a stream and it's live.
I've heard that too. I don't know where, but I think it just got beamed into my brain.
Yes. Just
I heard.
drummed into my mind.
I know. But I heard there will be at least one guest.
Guest, even.
Gasp. A guess.
Possibly plural, but at the very least singular.
At the
There's
very
gonna be
least
a lot.
singular.
There's gonna be a lot of fun stuff. I really hope people can spare their Saturday, or even we'll have a VOD up and everything too. But then you can't interact live, of course. And yeah, no real news or spoilers yet, but there's gonna be some cool stuff coming up.
You'll have to
so look
check
up
the
for it.
website.
Yeah, check the schedule. Sign up for it. There's gonna be a digital artist alley. Lots of cool things. We're doing our best to make it accessible and fun and interactable and just generally, Otafest for our community. So,
Yeah.
Exciting as heck.
yeah.
Super exciting. Super duper exciting.
Mhm.
The first,
Now long... Oh,
speaking of exciting stuff, cool stuff, Angelo and Dio, who's not here with us tonight, you guys made some Genshin food?
yes.
Some tasty vittles.
So, long-time listeners of the podcast will be fully aware that I am fully into Genshin Impact, as is Dio, and I believe Nancy started playing recently as well, haven't you?
So much.
Yay!
There's so much to get into. It's ridiculous. And because I got into it later than both you and Dio, I am so far behind.
There's just so much to catch up on, isn't there? There really
Yes.
is.
Yes.
So one big part of the game, at least for early and mid game, a lot of my friends at the end game say it's not that big of a deal, is the food. The cooking systems where you gather ingredients, you get to cook the food. There's like a small little mini game around it, and they give you the PNGs of the food, and they all look freaking amazing. They all look delicious. And one of my favorite foods in the world of Tevet, in the game of the Genshins, are those little Jade Parcels they're part of the story Zhongling is just, she shows up and you thaw out some extinct boars, and you're like, yeah, we just re-extincted the species, time to eat it. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of feeling that
It's the
me
kind
and
of
Dio
humor that they
wanted
wrote
to
the
live
story
for.
with.
Yeah.
I
And
feel
so the Jade Parcels, they're basically a little bit of pork and some stuff wrapped in some cabbage and in some nice soup broth. And being a relatively simple ingredient-wise food, made a lot of like YouTubers and stuff try to develop a kind of recipe for it. And Dio found one and she was like, yeah, I think we can try this. I think we can do this. And so yesterday night, we went on an adventure to gather ingredients, and we made the Jade Dumplings. No, Jade Parcels, that's what they're called. Jade Parcels. And it turned out
But
pretty
you-
good.
But you didn't have to defeat any hypostases for them, right?
Nope, no thawing out extinct boars or hypostases or cryo flowers or anything of that nature. We mostly just went to the store. That's really the big thing.
I mean, nowadays with a global pandemic, that is a quest in itself.
Arguably.
Yeah.
Very
Arguably.
true.
I don't know. I don't play Genshin, unlike my fellow weebs here. However, I am interested in food. I haven't really made video game food, but I've had video game food. The Jade Parcels look interesting. Nancy, I don't think there's an actual basis in real life for what they are. Like, they're dumplings, obviously. They're like, if you had dumplings that weren't made with your typical dumpling wrapping, but just like a cabbage leaf, it looks
Here's
like.
the thing. The most similar thing that I would have to compare them to would be cabbage rolls.
I knew you were going to say that, and I would have to agree.
I knew you were going to say that too. But actually, so the developers of Genshin it's a Chinese company.
Is it
and,
Taiwanese
a
or
lot
Chinese?
Of the,
Chinese.
I think it's Chinese.
Okay. Not that
Please
like,
correct.
you know,
Please
I'm not trying
correct
to
me if
split
I'm
hairs here, but I'm curious because different regions of Asia have different foods. And I'm like,
And
because I'm
different
not as
culture.
familiar. Maybe it's Taiwanese. I'm not as familiar with Taiwanese. I don't know.
So anyway, in my family, we do have something that's like Jade Parcels. The only thing that's different is that it's not wrapped in cabbage. They're wrapped in kind of these little pockets that are made from tofu skins.
Oh.
So
I know what
it's
you're talking
similar. Yeah, it's a similar aesthetic. You know, it's like a little pouch that's made out of like deep fried tofu, and then you fill it with fillings, and then you take it's a specific kind of fungus, but it's like a mushroom, and it's stringy, so you can use it to tie a knot around the bag to keep everything inside the little pouch, and then you simmer it in broth, very similar to this, but of course for Genshin they jazzed it up and they made it something that's a little more godly.
It's like if cabbage rolls met xiaolongbao. I feel like there's like
So
a
let me-
soupy bit.
Let
to
me
it.
describe the process of what we did. So the filling of it was ground pork with a few different flavorings. I think we used just some red bell pepper for color. In the game they used lotus root, but lotus root in Calgary, I don't know if you guys know where to get it. We couldn't find it
I
anywhere,
do.
but we actually
very
Googled.
seasonal.
And apparently, I'm not sure if it's pronounced hikama or jikama, is a very similar flavor and texture to it. So that's what we used as a sort of like a stand-in for the lotus root. We used jikama. And hikama. And so there was a little bit of bell pepper, a little bit of onion. We got some garlic in there. We got the hikama. And then there was just a few things for extra flavor. Like you got your salt, your pepper, but then like a good amount of some soy sauce. There was a little bit of mirin in there. The recipe actually said not to use mirin because it would end up too sweet. And
Yes.
Yeah.
but we ended up using it because we couldn't find the right thing. But we just used a little bit less to not become too sweet.
Yeah, mirin has its applications mostly in
mirin
like
is just really sweet.
grilling.
Like, I usually avoid mirin if I can.
But like Shaoxing wine is definitely different in terms of a regular like a cooking wine. It's not just you picking up a bottle of cheap red or white from your local liquor store, but it has its unique flavor profile that really makes a dish that is, especially if it's like Asian in nature, it adds that certain punch or feel to it, along
Absolutely.
with your standard sort of five spice type flavors or anise.
Let's see.
Anise is really strong in Asian
Anise.
cooking, Chinese cooking.
Yeah.
What else was
I think
there?
the
I
Star
think the other
anise
thing.
is.
I think the last thing in the pork mixture would have been some sesame oil, and
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask about. Did you add
everything-
sesame oil for that fragrance?
everything in there. It was so fragrant. It was so delicious smelling. We could not wait to eat this. So the next thing you do is like you just peel cabbage, just regular North American cabbage, nothing special about it, and then you just blanch it in boiling water with some salt and baking soda. The point of that is that it keeps the color vibrant, but it makes it pliable, something that you can work with easier. The baking soda keeps the color there. And so that's purely for aesthetics. If you've ever had cabbage rolls before, they can be quite pale and sickly looking and not very appetizing. And that's why you got to slather them with sauce and freaking Parmesan and whatever the hell else you want.
To make them look a little more appetizing?
Yes. Cabbage rolls do
Oh.
not look good. Like,
I
I'm sorry, people who
guess.
like cabbage rolls. I have never enjoyed how cabbage rolls look. They look horrifying to me.
They're tasty. I like
Okay.
them.
That's
Oh,
fair.
they taste good. I will eat a cabbage roll. But looking at them, I feel like they're the kind of food where the preparation makes them deserve to look good. And they don't, and that's unfortunate.
That is
But
unfortunate.
so once you've got your blanched cabbage leaves, you just ball up some fucking pork, pop it in the middle. The guy in the video, he actually took green onion and made an actual, like, tied it with a knot and everything. We
Right.
found that way
Mhm.
too fucking hard. Like, we were like, yeah,
Really?
there's no fucking way that we're tying off this green onion.
Wow.
So we ended up just looping it around and using a toothpick to kind of like hold it in place. That actually worked out exceedingly well. It took absolutely no skill to do. And with this much labor involved in this food, no skill is what we wanted. Finally, in a pan on the stove, we had some broth bubbling. We had it was a chicken stock, but we added some. I think it was rice wine vinegar. We had some soy sauce in there. We had some sesame oil, and then we just had some dried out red Thai chilies, just for a little bit of heat. And then you just finish it in there. I think it was like 10 minutes we had them just simmering away, and then just plate up and enjoy. It was fantastic.
Yeah. Does not take long. So
It was very
the
labor
little-
intensive.
Yeah.
Doing every
but, like,
little
the-
step and making it look good was the hard part.
Right.
Yeah, but imagine doing a hot pot with this. So, like, next time we have a hot pot, whenever that is, after COVID is all done and we all have our vaccinations, just imagine assembling some of these little parcels and having them as a thing you can toss into the hot pot when we're all gathered around one.
It would
Like,
be
that's-
so great.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we do in my family.
So part of what I thought after we were done this, we actually had a little bit of the pork mixture left over. So all I did was I balled them up, I seared them in a pan, and because the mirin was actually, like you guys say, extremely sweet, very sugary, they caramelized very quickly.
Mhm.
And then I just again dumped them in the pot in the pan to simmer to finish off. And I found the caramelization, because caramelization makes everything better. It was fantastic.
You could also
so-
just make like
Please.
little patties. My parents used to make
Yeah.
like these sort of green onion and pork sort of like not like burger patty, because that'd be thicker, but it's like sort of a
Kind
Oh,
of
it's like a
it's
sausage
meatball.
patty.
yeah, sort of, but it's much thinner, and because it's thinner, it crisps. Like it's not just
Yeah.
about caramelization, but it crisps. And then you
Mhm.
just have it with rice, and those are really tasty too. I miss those now, and I kind of want to make one.
Yeah.
So part of
And
me is
whatever
thinking,
caramelizes at the bottom of the pan, if you add like a little bit of wine and a little bit of stock
Mhm,
to
mhm.
it, you can get a really nice pan sauce. Now you've got a gravy to
get that
go with
fond
those.
going.
Really, really good.
Speaking of sort of game food, like the last one we really had was I guess it would have been 2 years ago now. I don't remember. My brain is not so good. Whenever the last Extra Life was that we had, that was the big group one. Because one of our staff members' brothers is a professional chef, and they while we were speedrunning randomized Legend of Zelda again, Ocarina of Time.
Trying to.
Yeah, they made us food that was inspired from like Breath of the Wild.
Oh.
So that was cool stuff.
Did you get
But-
to eat some Kentucky Fried Cuckoo?
I remember what we had. We had like meat pies and stuff. It was really good though. I've never really gone to try to make sort of pop culture inspired food. Like if you follow Binging with Babish, which is a YouTube cooking channel,
he makes
he's
a lot of
known
good
for
stuff.
making pop culture foods. So we're seeing like he made something from like the WandaVision show, the dinner from that. He's made like bacon pancakes from Adventure Time. He's made so many other things that are like that. And sometimes he doesn't just like. Sometimes he'll usually make the, let's say, on show recipe, and then he'll make like a more chefy recipe that's sort of nicer and more well balanced. Because just because it's in a TV show doesn't mean it's good. So he tries
Yeah,
to make
that's-
it actually good.
One thing that watching Binging with Babish really made me realize, a lot of the food that writers come up with is
Garbage.
either garbage or uninspired
Or too
or actually
complicated.
bad or too
Yeah.
complicated and just doesn't
Yeah.
work.
But he makes
instead,
them
he
into
takes
real
those cues
recipes. Yeah.
and makes them into something you could actually make and want to eat.
Yes.
Yep.
So he's real cool with all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Very, very
There's
true.
another similar channel like that called Cocktail Chemistry.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
every now and then they'll try to make like a cocktail from a TV show.
Did they
And
ever make?
sometimes it works out
like,
really well. Sometimes it's an absolute dumpster fire, and I
Have
love
they
it.
ever made like quote unquote health or mana potion type drinks too?
I don't believe so. But certain things like there was an episode where Bart made a Manhattan based off of what was on the musty wall of a bar for the mob. He made
right,
that.
I
And he was like,
remember
"Yeah,
that.
that was a perfect Manhattan.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that."
Mhm.
And then there was like, I think he's also done the
Flaming Mo?
perfume and Flaming Mo. He actually did.
Yeah.
He did
Wow.
the white wine in a man's hat with a single pickled plum.
Ew.
What's that from?
Also, The Simpsons.
Okay, I don't know that one. I was like, oh, what's the other drink I just had in my mind? Oh, I just lost it. But I mean, I think those are all really cool. Like,
Like, I don't know why The Simpsons just has quotable drinks, but those were the
I
first
mean-
three that we
that's
thought of.
classic Simpsons. That's classic Simpsons.
Oh,
but
he
yeah,
also
I
made the
thought-
Forget Me
oh,
shot, also from The Simpsons.
No, I remember.
Wow.
I remember now. Related, but not 100 as close. Back when I don't know if locked rooms are still a thing, but they have one. I think it's a downtown locked room that they did have a Harry Potter theme. So they had a Goblet of Fire drink that they would
Oh my.
actually set. They would, fill in a goblet and set it on fire for you, and then they did like. I think it's like salt shaker, right? To get you a little couple extra sparks out of the fire.
Oh my.
Kind of cool. They did a good job
So-
with it. Lots of show and presentation.
Pro tip, always
Along-
extinguish the fire before drinking a flaming shot.
Potentially.
Along
yes.
this line, a long time ago, Square Enix actually did sell packs of health potions and mana potions.
I remember that,
and a-
yes.
And apparently they were not good.
No.
Apparently they
Oh,
tasted
no.
Just
like
stick
cough
with
syrup.
Gator. Just stick with Gatorade.
Stick
That'll
with
have to
your,
do.
your run-of-the-mill energy drink if you have to. But yeah, apparently those were not good. And they even came in like signature dark blue glass vials and bottles and such.
Were they just
think
like
they were
energy
more-
drinks or? Were they trying
Probably.
to be anything?
Yeah, that's the
No.
question. Like, did they really need to make a consumer drink product, or did they just need to make containers in the shape of mana and health pots with a coloration of, that glass, so that they could anyone could fill it with whatever
they
liquid,
wanted.
right? Like the question here is, did they really need to make a drink, or did they just need to make a container? And I think we all know the real answer is that it's just a container.
It was definitely more of a collector's item because there was a potion set and there was an ether set.
Sure.
And then there were mega elixirs.
Oh my.
So
Like, all of
it was
that is
definitely
great.
a collector's thing.
But I think, the reality of it is it should be a display item for most of those kind of fans. And if it's a display item, it doesn't need to be a drink. Just make it something that looks pretty and sits on a shelf for all of time until your cat comes by and knocks it over.
You know what I wish would stay on a shelf and just look pretty until my cat comes by and knocks it over and breaks it, and then we never have to deal with it again?
Me?
No, we
Damn.
love you, Jay. I was talking about daylight savings time.
You're
Yeah,
right.
daylight savings can go really. I'm not allowed to say a lot of things on the podcast, so I'm trying to find the nicest way I can say this. It can go away forever. It really can.
Yes.
Today was the worst day, and it wasn't because I slept poorly. It was just because I lost an hour of sleep.
Wait
And
a
you have
minute.
to do this.
That's
twice
true.
And I'm
you
not
have to
saying
do
that
this every year.
I'm not saying that the priorities of farmers who are good people and feed us with the foods, but
That's actually
they're while they are important people, I am also going to put it out there that we no longer need that. We no longer let kids out of school just so they can start working on the farm. That's not the point of it anymore. So let's just stop already. For the love of
Apparently
God.
that was an urban myth. There was something I read a little while ago that
Well, then there's
mostly
even
said
less
that-
reason.
Yeah, so mostly, apparently, daylight savings was just an odd energy savings measure because they wanted people to have the lights on in the morning rather than at night.
Oh. That's
I
different.
don't get it. I don't get it.
Why would I leave my lights on in the morning? That's when I'm trying to sleep. I don't need lights on in the morning.
Daylight savings is a horribly obsolete idea and should not be accumulating a death toll to this day because people who have to drive to work have to do
Right.
it after losing an hour of sleep.
Here's the thing. If we're a democratic society. We live in a society. Therefore,
We do.
if
a
we
society.
put forth to everybody, who the hell wants daylight savings time to be a thing anymore? I need to see the numbers. I need to see the weighted numbers of who should have a say and who has whether it's scientific, whether it's
Well, I mean, like,
based
BC
on other
voted
cycles.
for it, but then they decided, you know what? It doesn't make sense for us to do it if Alberta and Ontario are still doing it.
I just
It's like
want to know.
BC's just waiting for the other parts of Canada to catch up to their decision.
Right.
And so Alberta did actually try to push for the abolishing of daylight savings 3 years ago. And what shut it down was sports leagues said no, specifically hockey, and airlines said no. And I can't reconcile in my head what
Why?
reasoning they could have had that they said no. It was the strangest thing. So some airlines didn't want there to be a 2-hour difference between Alberta and BC because depending on which one we chose as our full-time forever, we're sticking with whatever time it is, we could be 1 hour ahead or we could be 2 hours ahead. And people took offense to this.
Isn't it that sometimes we're synced with Saskatchewan?
Yes. Saskatchewan
Right.
actually doesn't. I believe
Doesn't do it.
Saskatchewan doesn't do daylight savings.
Yeah,
so
so
sometimes,
sometimes
we
we're
sync up
sync-
with them.
So to me, I would just be just for the sake of consistency, I would just want it to be 1 hour off of Saskatchewan and then 1 hour ahead of BC. And then that's how, just because borders are a thing.
So
that
I
somehow
believe
feels
that
better.
Saskatchewan is permanently at UTC
Cent-
-6.
Yeah, they're
Oh, so
central.
that's so
right?
we would
And
just
then-
always match them
So right
Or-
now we are UTC -6. We currently
Yes.
match
Yes.
Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
And then in the winter we go to UTC -7, correct?
Yes.
Let's just
you
move
are
to
correct.
Saskatchewan. They seem to
So-
have figured it out.
So the debate, like, I think it's unanimous. I think everyone would unanimously tell us that they do not want daylight savings. But the choice between do we want to stay at -6 or -7 from UTC is the real debate, because
You know what's kind of funny?
Hmm.
If you acknowledge that we should be UTC -6, you can make the joke that Saskatchewan is so flat that the sun rises for both of us at the same time.
That is pretty good. I
Damn.
like it.
That is good.
I saw where you were going with it. I wanted
Wow.
you to finish
I
because it's a good
I did
point.
not see that coming.
For
Wow.
anyone who doesn't
Okay, but
know
anyway,
that, like, if you've never been, the joke is also that if you travel, east to Saskatchewan, if you look behind you, you can still see Calgary. anyway, sorry,
okay.
you were saying.
So to finish my point, Albertans were given a choice. Do you want it to be bright really early in the morning, or do you want it to be bright really late at night? Pick one.
I would
And
take night.
it was an even
I'll
split
be honest,
down
I
the
don't
middle.
really care as long as I don't have to do this anymore. As long as I don't have to
Yeah,
change
that's
all of
kinda
the
how I
clocks
feel
that
about
aren't
it.
that aren't like internet and satellite timed and all that shit. I don't really care that much. My body will figure it out. I just need to know that I don't have to do it anymore. That's it. Period.
Yep. That's basically how I feel about it. I just don't want to do this time screwiness twice a year. I mean, the one in the fall isn't so bad because you get an extra hour of sleep and it feels great. But the one in the spring is just, it's so detrimental.
Here I was waking up at 9 a.m. today, thinking it's like, oh, I actually got to sleep in a little bit today. Good job, me. I actually stayed in bed for a little, and then I'm realizing that I got scammed.
You actually woke up at 8.
By the government.
Big
Conspiracy
scamas.
theory. It's big clock. Big clock screwing us.
Jeez.
Father time.
Anyway, I rant about it every year, but I hate daylight savings, and that's really what it comes down to. We just need to stop
Right.
doing it.
Something. So you know what? On the topic of time, and it's something I actually forgot to put in, but I want to talk about it. Happy COVID-versary, I think.
No.
Yes.
it is.
Happy. 1 year of social distancing and what do you call it? Lockdown measures. And why
Happy
aren't
1
we
year
like
of this shit.
why aren't we like New Zealand yet? Couldn't we just have done it properly the first time around?
I don't think we could have done it properly. Well, we could have done it better, but I don't think we could have done it actually properly.
I actually don't want to get into that. But yeah, it's essentially about the 1 year at this point that we've sort of entered lockdown measures, but we were made very aware that it was here. It wasn't just a Asia problem or a Italy and Spain problem. It was now a hello America, it's your turn problem.
Yes.
How do you feel about it?
I still refer to last year as if last year is 2019.
Yeah, 2020 just felt like it didn't happen.
Except it was just sort of this weird stasis. A lot's happened in 2020, but also not much happened in 2020. It was
And
a
yet
very
here
weird
I
shift
am.
of attention.
Like
Another
time
year
passed, but
closer to
nothing
death.
happened.
Here we all are,
Yeah.
another year closer to whatever age we're all gonna go at.
It's true. I can't wait for the books to come out for history. I'm tired of being a part of unprecedented events and being a part of history. I would like to
May
be
you
part of.
live in interesting times.
I wish that I was just part of the, part of the history book that gets skipped over. That nobody. It was like 2020, nothing happened, and not in a bad way. Just literally nothing happened. And then the year
2020,
after that
nothing
was
happened.
also a good year in that nothing bad happened. Nothing great happened, but also just nothing good happened. And if that continued on for another 5 or 6 years of my life, I'd be okay with that too. But
You
here
said
we
nothing
are,
great happened, but also nothing good happened.
and I'm okay with that. I want equilibrium at this point.
No.
But
no
I feel
great,
we
no
are
good
owned.
means all bad.
We are all owed something. It does feel. But yeah, at this point, like this, just, as always, just go out there, put on your mask, be good, be safe, be socially distant, be safe, be smart. And it's all the same thing over and over again. It's like Groundhog Day, but none of us are lucky enough to be Bill Murray, except for Bill Murray.
I just realized that it's going to take me a very long time to be okay with being in an elevator with a stranger again.
The thing that I've come to miss the most in that sort of regard
Is farting in the elevator right before you leave?
No.
Wow.
It's not that I haven't seen any
Wow.
friends during this. Usually during when we had like more lax periods and things were quote unquote better. But I haven't like hung out with friends a lot. But the thing is, like, I'm so sort of sad that like even when I've hung out with friends and like we're fairly socially distant about everything, we're like smart and safe because we're conscious people. But at the same time, like when we're done hanging out, we don't really want to hug, or there's like this really weird like social awkwardness about it. Like we don't want to, we're trying to be socially aware and safe about everything. And yeah,
Can
of course,
our
we
first
went
fully
out, but I mean,
vaxxed
it just means
episode
that we go for
be a
like ice
drinking
cream.
episode?
Sorry?
Can our first fully vaxxed episode be a drinking episode?
I mean, you don't need the vaccine to drink, my guy.
Yeah, but we need the vaccine to drink together.
Oh, to drink together. Oh God, that means
That's what I'm implying.
That means I'd have to set up the friggin' podcast rig all up over again in like the living room and stuff. Hey?
Yeah, and we could help. I
will say I
We
do
could
like
set
our
it up
current setup.
together.
I like our current setup. I'm not gonna lie.
Current
Just
setup
because
is bad.
the sound files are much better. That way, production is much easier. But yeah, like those are it's come down to like it used to be like, oh, I miss seeing my friends and being around them and stuff. But it's not even that. It's actually the stuff that in between that I miss that more, and I know that I miss it because there's like a gap because we're trying to be mindful of each other, and we're trying to be careful, even though we're all fairly certain that we're clear, but I wonder how long it's gonna take to get over that. It's depressing in a little way, So I'm sorry for bringing people down, but that's the thing that's been on my mind more.
You know what else is a downer?
What's that?
When one telecom tries to buy another one and
fuck that
consolidates
noise.
that whole monopoly noise. Yeah. So
Welcome to Canada, where we can figure out free
Where we
healthcare
have-
and all the other cool stuff, but we can't figure out good telecom in 2021.
We have our classic big three, and there was an up-and-coming potentially fourth, and now it's not going to be a fourth anymore because it'll be, I don't know, swallowed up by one of the other three. Like, it's just insane that anytime anyone tries to break the number three, someone will just buy it. It's like, is there
True.
something magic about three? Like, I don't understand. Is
Well, there
three
is.
the
It's
only
a
amount
prime
of room
num-
that we
it's-
have?
It's a great prime number. It's a very classic sort of thing, but let's not get into numerology here.
It's a classic form when you're talking about photography and the
Yeah.
composition of an image.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. But just to be clear, for people who don't pay attention, Shaw has announced plans to sell. Shaw is a Western-based telecoms company,
Basically,
Canada,
agreements
based
have
in
been
Calgary,
written up.
and not Bell. Roger is the
Rogers.
one thinking of buying them up, and we're not talking about a merger. We're talking about outright purchasing. So they would, you would be down back to big three in at least the Alberta region. I know the other provinces near us have I can't remember BC's, but Saskatchewan has SaskTel or something like
Yeah.
that.
SaskTel
Anyway.
still exists for now, although Bell has expressed interest in buying it.
Right.
Manitoba
And-
used to have MTS, but Bell bought that.
And you're like, well,
Yeah,
why are
so-
you talking about this on the Otafest podcast? Why do we talk about anything on the Otafest podcast? I ask you. No, I'm just kidding. But it's just if you like having decently priced internet and decently priced cell phone plans and decently priced anything that is telecom that you get your service provider from, well, we get screwed here in Canada if you're not aware. And a lot of it has to do with price fixing and collusion to do so. We don't get a fair market, really, for what we pay if you compare to other developed nations other than the US, who also kind of screw around a little bit. We really don't do that well on the telecom side of things. Our plans are way overpriced. The service is relatively poor. The connection speeds are relatively poor. Seriously, just look it up. I'm not saying you've got to, write your MLA or anything like that, but
It'd be something nice if you did, though.
I really hope that the
pretty
CRTC does not allow this merger to go through, the purchase to go through.
But here's the thing.
But I have no faith in the CRTC.
I don't have a lot of faith in it, but it's not about necessarily just the CRTC. It's just because the Shaw family has decided to really pursue the chance of selling. That if it wasn't Rogers, it would be Bell. If it wasn't Bell, then it'd be somebody else. It'd be TELUS. So it's sort of.
Now the one thing is, Bell, I would almost understand because Bell has no consumer offerings in Alberta.
Not here, no. They are quite popular out east, yes.
Yeah, I come from out east. Bell is everywhere out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Out here, all Bell has is cell phones and satellite TV. They have basically
yes.
no ground-based infrastructure for consumer use.
Mm-hmm.
So I would almost understand if they were trying to get into it, but at the same time, I would still feel the same.
It still doesn't make it any better for the consumer.
For the consumer.
Yeah.
It is not good.
So, for a little bit of background, Shaw bought Freedom Mobile, I think a while ago. And that was supposed to add to their portfolio of offerings when it came to breaking into the cellular market, because Shaw's really been cable internet based for a long time, and then they wanted to get into cellular infrastructure, and they had built a lot of it. It wasn't being sold yet as a service to consumers yet, but it was being built 10 years ago. I remember reading about it, and then they never launched, and then they bought Freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And that just sort of got enveloped into their portfolio, and that became their cellular offering. And they started merging what they had in their infrastructure along with what Freedom already gave them as part of the sale.
Mm-hmm.
And now if you take all of that and you sell it to Rogers, Rogers now will own a giant portion of the cellular spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
For those who don't know, the entire spectrum is made up of a whole ton of frequencies, and some
frequencies are better than others.
Yeah. So there is a committee that just sells them off to different providers, and Freedom was one of them.
Yeah. That's why you don't
Shaw
get mixed,
was one of them.
cross signals, for example.
Yeah. So the more of that spectrum you own, the better the signal, because now your infrastructure is able to bounce all over the place and provide that consistent service to cellular subscribers. And just imagine one company owning the majority of the entire spectrum. That really just drives customership to them. Not only do they own all of Shaw's customers if this goes through.
It would mean that they have the best connection, the best coverage overall. And then, as a customer, you would be like, well, I don't want to be stood in the middle of nowhere and not have coverage, especially maybe when you need it most, when you've gone camping or fishing and maybe your car died. So
yeah, exactly. So now as a consumer, we would have a lot of reasons to go to Rogers. If you were a customer of Shaw's, now you are just, inherited. You get sold to Rogers. You're already a customer of theirs. But if you weren't, if for some reason you were outside of this, 80% umbrella or something, now you have a reason to also join, which really leaves a very thin slice for people who want to compete. That means that there's no room at all for someone new to come in and try and shake up the market.
And I'm glad that you mentioned Freedom as well, and Shaw, because I'm with Freedom, for example, and I don't know, I'm with Freedom, and there are knocks on Freedom. Everyone already knows them, but one of the big promises they make is that they will not raise the price on you. The price that you enter with is the price that you stay with. Now, if any sort of sale goes through from Shaw, I don't know what I'm gonna do necessarily, other than invariably ending up switching to a different provider, which will be one of the big three providers most likely, because I'm gonna get screwed, because there's no reason not to get screwed at this point.
Well, there's nowhere else for you to go.
Exactly, but
That's
but
the
like
problem.
with the freedom bit, it's like I'm just sort of like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna get grandfathered. I don't know if I'm gonna get better service. Most likely not. I just don't know where I'm gonna really end up as a user of a service that is auxiliary to the primary service that is being sold.
Yep.
Just like
and
you just end up.
there are
you
no
feel
promises because
you feel disenfranchised is the best word for it.
Yeah, and I was with Freedom before they were bought by Shaw, and could you imagine having been one of the original
Wind
Freedom
members?
supporters, like Wind? Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I was with Wind, and then Wind was rebranded to Freedom because Shaw bought them. And then as one of those customers, you are being slowly reintegrated into Shaw's ecosystem. So as a customer, you've been passed through 3 companies at this point, and possibly a 4th in the near future. It's not a great feeling.
No. Not necessarily because I need a lot of customer service or anything. I just want to know where it stands on like what kind of service I'm getting, because even though I'm not a huge mobile heavy user, I still use my cell phone. What a surprise. And I want to know for my money what I should expect from my provider, my service provider, and should I start looking around? But if I look around again, what am I looking around to? We've already talked about
Your
it.
choices are very limited. Even more limited
price
now.
fix and collude, and this is not some conspiracy theory stuff. It is very standard knowledge that they definitely play off of each other a lot, right?
Yep.
Anyways, that's the rant. It's a little sad. It's annoying as heck. Good luck, everybody.
You know what
everyone.
wasn't that sad? The weather today
Tell
was
me.
great.
The weather
Yeah,
has been
so-
good in general, yo.
So
I got to
I
pet
know
dogs recently.
I
It's
know
good.
that fake spring is a thing. I know we go through it every winter, and invariably
Can we
it
get rid of
snows
it like
again.
daylight savings?
fake
Can we just
spring and
tell-
just get
yeah,
real
can we
I'm
spring in
pretty
the
done
way.
with fake spring. I think we're
Yeah.
pretty good.
I
You
don't
know,
think we're
it's
done
really
with
hard
fake
to
spring.
say if it
I don't-
if
I
it is
think
fake
we've got
spring
one.
anymore. It's
I
just
think
been
we've got
sticking around for so long.
I think we have at least one minus 15 ahead of us, is my guess.
I thought we got our last one. I thought we got it last week.
We did.
Maybe.
We got that random blizzard last week.
That random blizzard, that random minus 12 day.
Yeah, and then it warmed up again.
Yeah.
Knocking on wood.
Hold
Oh
on, I'm
God,
gonna-
where's some wood for me to knock
You
on?
know what? I'm gonna. I'll
If
put it
anything,
out there. I'm gonna
I
put
think
it
we're
out there.
in real spring, and that the next blizzard is just going to be our first false winter.
Yes.
Oh,
you
you're,
know
you're
what?
gonna turn
For
the
what
tables
it's
on
worth,
that, eh?
I'm looking at the monthly. Like now, this is obviously not the best prognosticator. I don't care how much science goes into meteorology, but I'm looking a month ahead, and all the numbers that we're expecting are in the high single digits, low double digits sort of feel, or mid double digits. So maybe you're right. There's not a lot of minuses across the board except for the overnight temperatures. I'm for it. I actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and rescind what I was saying, because even though I was like, oh, there might be another minus 15 coming, I'm more like attuned to like actual nature stuff, not in a weird holistic druidic way, but more like I look outside with my eyes and I see that the trees have buds on them, and it was late February. It was late February when that was already in place. Whereas
Last
I remember
2 days of February, my Japanese maple, my indoor plant, started coming alive. It started
Right.
waking
I
up
trust
from
that way
hibernation.
more than I trust almost anything else, because I remember last year, I believe it was already March, and I was noticing that the trees hadn't really budded yet. They were getting there, but they didn't seem as close as they are right now at this same time last year. So I have to say that at the end of the day, I've got to trust nature, and it's sort of, the greater ecosystem around us has it figured out a little bit more than even our scientific instruments because they have to. They've
And
got timing.
sometimes we get fake winter in like June and all of our trees all fall over.
Oh God.
No, well, that's
Remember
due
that?
to like that's due to like weight from
hail.
having leaves
Yep.
to attach snow to, so they get too heavy.
But that is the risk of leafing and budding too early, is that if it snows again, all of those things die off because there's no way for
It's
you
true.
to support all that snow on you if you're a tree. So,
for
there's
what
nothing
it's worth. Sorry.
considering
Yeah. No. Yeah.
considering
You're
where
right,
we
you're right.
are, it can happen.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I've already had a couple Slurpees and some ice cream. 'Cause the
Nice.
weather was
Yeah,
that
so-
nice.
So I actually spent 5 hours outside yesterday. 5 hours in
Insane.
sun. It was a brand new adventure. I went walking. I went for bubble tea. I walked to the corner store. The corner store that I've lived by for a year and haven't actually gone inside because it was
Mhm.
COVID for most of the time I've been here. Like it was
Right.
It was an adventure. I felt like a kid again. This is the stuff I did when I was a kid. I would go on adventures just walking around in the neighborhood. It was nice.
That's good.
It was
I
nice, like genuinely nice.
Yeah, the other day it was literally plus 17 in some places in Calgary.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was
I'm down for it.
fantastic.
I am down for actual spring, and I think, yeah, like I said, I'll rescind what I was guessing. I think we're gonna stay in general spring. Like we might still have a little bit of snow just because that's just how things are around here. I cannot wait for the first big rainstorm to wash away all the
yeah.
dusts, the dust, the dirt, the gravels, the salts. I want all
So
of that gone.
speaking of which, Nancy got a drone a couple weeks ago, and it was hovering between too cold to actually, fly it safely outside and just barely warm enough. And because it was such a nice day yesterday, we launched it just really quickly just to see, what the video quality was like, what the photo
Nice.
quality was like, just to take
Who
a
you
quick
spying on?
our own roofs, because as adults who now own a house, we kind of need to see what's going on up there.
Why not use a
And-
ladder?
Because we
Why
do not have
use
a
a
ladder
ladder when
tall
you
enough
can
for
use a
these
drone?
roofs.
Because sometimes you want to see the physical quality, not just the visual quality.
So our drone has taught me that the inside of our gutters, the ones that go all the way around the roof,
Mhm.
It's
those
disgusting.
are actually white.
Oh.
They're white on the inside. I
Oh,
can
wow.
see the black grit that's come off of our shingles into the gutter over the winter. It's like white plastic in there. I never knew. They're black
Wow.
on the
Right.
outside. I always thought it was
the
black,
previous
painted
homeowner
aluminum.
must have cleaned them before they moved out.
Terrible. The worst kind
Just
of people.
nuts. But also now I'm concerned about 1 or 2 spots on my roof. So I guess
Right.
it's a good thing we did that test fly.
Fair enough. I
These
think
are
that's
the-
enough test flying for this episode, though.
Yeah, these are the type of adult things. That's when you know when you're an adult. You get a drone, and the first thing you do is check your gutters.
Yep.
Disgusting.
It's,
The worst.
I know. Horrible.
It would
I am
be
just
like
the worst.
it would be like getting a sports car to pick up your child from daycare.
Oof.
But now you're best dad.
No, you're always just gonna be dad.
I mean, if you get a sports car to pick up your child from daycare,
Mhm.
that either means that you're going through a midlife crisis or you're a
Mhm.
single dad trying to pick up teachers.
Or you're trying
Whoa.
to one up the other dad.
Also true.
Or trying to pick
Uh,
up the other dads.
Also, maybe. Very true.
Just as a quick heads up before we finish up here, we'll have, I think the next coming, or maybe in one of the next 2 episodes, it'll probably be the spring anime prediction episode plus the recap episode, and we'll have more Otafest 2021 stream news by then, I believe. So look out for that. And other than all those things, catch up with us soon, and we'll have more stuff for you. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Imagine having a 32-core PC with a 3090 just for recording a podcast.
Who would do that?
Bye-bye!